Greetings, and welcome to this brief introduction to Plato's Republic, Book 2. I'm Keith Whitaker. At the end of Book 1 of the Republic, Socrates thought that he was done. Glaucon, and eventually the others, force him to continue. As with the beginning of the Republic, its continuation is not chosen by Socrates. Glaucon demands that Socrates persuades them that justice is good in itself. To motivate Socrates, he presents the contrary argument, based on nature, that justice is nothing but a compact among the weak for their own advantage. If he could get away with injustice, any strong man would be crazy to do otherwise. His brother Adeimantus supports Glaucon's attack on justice with the argument based on convention, that the authorities, parents, and poets praise justice only for its consequences, not for itself, that in private they praise injustice over justice, and that they even say that the gods are indifferent to justice. Adeimantus underscores Glaucon's demand that Socrates persuade them that justice is good by itself in the soul. Socrates claims that he is unable to defend justice as the brothers wish, but he adds that it would not be pious not to try. They have forced his hand. Socrates then proposes this approach. To see what justice is, they should first look for it in something larger, the city, so as then to see it in what's smaller, the individual soul. He doesn't say what this approach will mean for the second part of their request, to see that justice makes the individual happy. In the central section of Book 2, Socrates and Adeimantus behold a city coming to be, in speech. The principle of this city's growth is nature, the natural needs of the body. These needs are met by the division of human beings into different arts, one man, one art. This city contains farmers, carpenters, tailors, shoemakers, tool makers, herdsmen and shepherds, merchants and retailers, and finally wage earners. Justice appears to be the balance between the citizens' needs and their production. They grow or make only what they need. They eat simple food in a simple way. They associate freely with each other, limiting even their procreation to avoid poverty and war. Their justice, in other words, seems rooted in a sort of natural moderation. Now, Adeimantus likes this city a lot. Even Socrates calls it the true and healthy city. By doing so, he seems to imply that by nature, politics, that is, matters related to the polis or city, is limited to meeting the needs of the body. The city's attempt to do more, to set up families, rulers, law, including divine law, have wars, are unnatural and characteristic of the false or unhealthy city. If Socrates had an opportunity to continue, what would he have said justice is in the individual? It seems that it would be the individual analog to that natural moderation in the city, each part of an individual limiting itself to its natural needs, not wanting more. A simple life of simple satisfaction, lacking such things as virtue and even philosophy. But, just as he did at the beginning of Book 2, so too here in the third and final part of Book 2, Glaucon interrupts and forces Socrates to go farther. Glaucon denounces the true city as a city of pigs. He wants meat-eating, sex for pleasure, art, wealth, and war. But Socrates points out, by the principle of one man, one art, that also means the addition of a whole armed camp of guardians for this city. After some surprise, Glaucon agrees. The question then becomes how to select these guardians on the basis of their soul. They must be harsh to enemies, yet gentle to friends, like noble dogs. Socrates even claims, ridiculously, that these dogs must be philosophic. So how to educate such guardians? That becomes the question for almost the rest of the entirety of the Republic. At this point, Adeimantus returns to the conversation. Socrates claims that the greatest part of education is when children are youngest, for then they can be stamped with the desired character. That means focusing first on music, and specifically speeches, lying speeches. Socrates explains that he has in mind stories told to children about the gods. He criticizes the authoritative poets, Homer and Hesiod, for their stories. Adeimantus is uneasy with the critique until Socrates points out that those stories have politically unsalutary consequences. In the rest of Book 2, Socrates outlines two types that he says that they should, as founders, adopt to censor the poet's poetry. The object of the censorship is not only that the citizens should not fight with each other, but that they should pursue virtue. After hearing each type, Adeimantus and then Socrates agree on them as laws. It seems even or especially in this Cydian speech, one cannot dispense with some law, and specifically law about God. The first type is that God is not the cause of all things, but rather only of good things. The second type is that neither as jugglers do gods, plural, change themselves, nor do they lead us astray with lies, in word or in deed. Both laws about gods are negative. They command what the poets may not say about God. Both types assume that our reasoning can encompass the divine. The first law implies that God is not omnipotent. There must be other powers that cause evil. The second law implies that the gods do not rule, for rule always involves some element of lying, either to your children, or unreasonable friends, or your enemies. These are neither the Greek gods nor the biblical God. These gods seem almost like abstract ideas. In conclusion, Book 2 is a pivot point in the Republic. Twice, Glaucon's manly objections force Socrates to come to the defense first of justice and then of the city. Likewise, Glaucon's passion and Adeimantus's austerity set the terms for Socrates' defense. He must defend an idea of justice, somehow good in the soul by itself. In the Republic, Plato reveals the philosophic defense of politics. The city is natural, but it also needs philosophy. The city needs philosophy to come to the aid of justice, against sophistry, against poetry, against the spirited objections of good-natured youth, and to cool the city's own fever. That is why the dialogue is unchosen by Socrates. Compare the laws, in which the Athenian stranger initiates the dialogue, and which provides Plato's political defense of philosophy. Thank you for joining this brief introduction to Plato's Republic, Book 2.